Hey, Kellen, we just start by just what your approach was on that final series as far as what you saw, just your play calling on that, and then what happened with the clock when you got toward the end there.
End of game, obviously, we got the ball with just under 4 minutes probably. They're a really good defense. They make you chip away at everything, and so we knew it wasn't going to be a quick movement. We're going to have to grind that thing out. I thought we were very patient with it, which was good. Kind of grind out a few first downs as we went and got around midfield. Good place. Dak threw the really good slant to Amari, made a great play right there, kind of got us into, high range. We can kick it from there. It's not a perfect one. And then after that, we got to chip away at this thing and try and put ourselves in a manageable situation so we can kick the game winner and move on. Clock got a little bit goofy. I don't really like my run to Tony. I would have probably called something different there if we'd gone down that road again. But those things always happen through a game, and so ultimately Greg kicked a 56-yarder. It was awesome. Hopefully next time it's a 48-yarder, and I feel a little bit better about it. But
what were you looking at? Were you looking on the scoreboard? Were you looking down on the?
I was looking across, and then we kind of lost vision of it, and then we saw one down below, but near the sideline. But it was just one of those. I kind of felt like I didn't make the perfect call there with the handoff to Tony, but we still managed it and gave ourselves at least an opportunity to kick the game winner and give them no time, which I think we wanted to make sure we were the last ones there. So
were your eyes on the digital board clocks during the game for most of the game, or were you looking at the end?
No, more of the across the way. There's one straight across from us, kind of right above I don't know what it is. There's a bar, a little restaurant down below, and then there's one in the end zone, and so kind of lost vision of that one. Saw one down the sideline, but I was more trying to handle the play call, and Mike was kind of handling the clock, and so we just kind of got the personnel thing. I got a little jumbled there because Tony was on the field with Zeke, and then we were trying to get on the ball, and so fortunately we were able to get through it.
Any VIPs in the restaurant down below where you see if they're eating there?
Oh man, to be honest, the camera guy, when it's like on the car, he kind of moved right in front of the screen, the game clock, and so there's some unique cameras or screens in there, which it's a cool place, but there's some unique stuff.
On the play to Tony, it looked, I don't know what you saw on film, it looked like he could have stayed outside and got more yards and probably could have run out of bounds. Is that what y'all saw? Or just...
There was a chance, yeah. I think we were right on that threshold for Greg, obviously. Felt like we just need some positive yards here to get it into a good situation. Felt like we had an opportunity based off their defense to maybe see if we can get a chunk out of it and get a nice, bigger run, because they seem to be playing a little bit more coverage based. And, James ran with them, and then there's two defenders already out there, so they're kind of in a 3-for-2. CD can only block one guy, and Tony made the decision. I think ultimately there's a chance maybe to get outside, but he just went north and south, got as many yards as he could, and put us in position.
When Amari gets hurt and you lose the timeout, how does that change your approach as to what you guys have when it goes from 2 timeout to 1 timeout?
Yeah, 1 timeout. You're always trying to save it as much as you can for the last play, just because of especially, there's games where maybe the penalties are a little bit higher, and so you don't want to put yourself into a 10-second runoff situation. So we're always trying to save that timeout as long as possible, just to protect ourselves from anything that comes up. And so we used the sideline the first play, got a completion, try to see if we can steal ourselves a run there, and then after that, we'd be able to chip away at it if needed.
I talked about you being very patient in that game. Is that difficult for you, or have you grown into a patient play caller?
Yeah, I think time on task. Obviously, you learn to be a little bit more patient. The first run goes for whatever it was. It might have been negative. I can't remember. But after that, you kind of know, okay, we're going to stick with this. We're going to make our little adjustments, find our way here. Again, I think it was awesome for our offense that 2 weeks into the season, we've played 2 very different styles, 2 very different styles on defense, but we've also approached it two very different ways. And so I think guys see that, and it's going to help us along the way, that we're going to be able to play these different flows throughout seasons, that we're not stuck one way. We're not going to do one thing, week in and week out. We're going to do the exact same thing. So I think hopefully as we go through this, we'll find game plans and matchups that we feel are to our advantage, and we'll attack people different ways.
Kellen, I think the broadcast captured you and Dak on the bench at the end of the game, kind of embracing when Greg makes the field goal. How much of that was happiness, relief? I mean, take us through the emotions of that moment and what it felt like to get the win, especially with the uncertainty at the end of the game.
Yeah, obviously a big win. Anytime early in the year, I think it's important to split these first two, especially when they're on the road. Find a way to split them. Obviously, everyone wants to win every game, but you split the first two is obviously important. Now we got a home stretch here, and we'll see where that takes us. Dak played a really good game. It was going to be a patient game on his end. He 23 to 27, I believe it was, right? It was going to be a completion game, and that's the way that defense plays, and he's got to be patient. And I think credit to him that he was willing to just keep taking it and keep moving the chains.
How do y'all feel y'all handled Joey Bosa? Obviously wasn't a big factor in the game.
Yeah, obviously big kudos to Terrence. Phenomenal game by him. He did a really good job. I think other guys obviously helped along the way, but at the end of the day, that thing was about Terrence showing up and playing a really good game.
You mentioned Pollard's ability to get north and south. What makes him such a dynamic playmaker with the ball in his hands?
Yeah, just his suddenness. He makes a decision, he goes, and I think that's an extremely talented trait, I guess you'd say. He's got some ability that's tremendous, and we love it. We love having Tony. We love having Zeke. We love being able to play different styles of ball, play both of them at the same time at different times. And so, I think we're in a unique spot. We're very fortunate to have both those guys because the season's long, and you're going to need both of them. We're going to use both of them.
The throw that Dak made to Amari, just talk about how he decisively ripped it right in the tight window. Just a big time throw there.
The slant late.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great decision by Dak. Just a simplified game. We got an opportunity to throw the slant. Amari obviously does a tremendous job on slants. Dalton Schultz is also a big part of that. He ran essentially a slant inside and ran right through the inside shoulder of his defender, which kind of forces that defender to stay there for just a second. Gives him just enough time to have that opening to throw it to Amari. So all three of those guys, big kudos to all three of them.
You talked about Schultz as a blocker. He seems like in that game a lot you asked him to do a lot in the middle of the line.
Yep. Schultz, those tight ends, they got to do a lot of different jobs. They got to go make big plays like Schultz did on third down in the red zone, go make a catch down near the turf. He makes a big play there, and then he's got to go back in there and keep grinding away, and he did a tremendous job. We asked those guys to block defensive ends at times, which is tough. When you're blocking, Joey Bosa and these different guys on the backside of runs, those are tough tasks, but he's been up for it for really as long as he's been here. He's done a tremendous job for us, even in the play action world. Those tight ends blocked some of those defensive ends a few times when we felt like we had opportunities, and they've done a really good job.
You were talking about the two different styles in these two games offensively and how that helps this offense and their confidence going forward. But as far as having two such desperate games for defensive coordinators to study this early when you've been that effective, how does that help you or edge does that give you going forward?
Yeah, I think anytime you present different things on film makes defenses work. We do it with defenses at the same time when they give us stuff that we got to prepare for, and so we're trying to create game plans, especially early in this year, that give us an opportunity to be successful. We also give defense a lot of things to deal with, work on. People only got so much time during the weeks, and so when you give them a lot of stuff that they got to prepare for, ultimately they got to pick and choose what they're going to focus on. And I feel like we're fortunately in a place where we got a lot of personnel that we can roll. We can play with multiple tight ends, multiple running backs, multiple receivers. CD even got in the run game action this week, and so the more we do all those things, I think it's going to help us in the long run.
Is that just about getting your playmakers ball in space? I mean, with CD in the backfield.
Yeah, and obviously that's a personnel package. At times we can take Tony and Zeke off the field and still feel very comfortable, and so that's a testament, obviously, to our tight ends, to our receivers. That we feel very comfortable with those guys. CD's done that stuff. He did it at Oklahoma. He can run the football too, and so we snuck that one in there, and I think it's going to be good for us.
Swinging gate, y'all call it swinging gate? What do y'all call that? That's what we call it back in high school.
Yeah, swinging gate's a good one. Yeah, I'm not going to call it. Yeah. We'll get there eventually, but we felt like it was an opportunity. It's something that's teams have done in the past at different times in the NFL. It hasn't come up for a couple of years here, and so I felt like it was a good opportunity versus this defense to just give them something different, something they definitely haven't been preparing for. Try and get an easy one out. Threw it to Tony, got a nice little play. Second time we got a little aggressive, probably to my own fault. Just giving ourselves one more shot there to try and see if we can get one more play out of that personnel package before they had an opportunity to get to the sideline.
How many times do you need to see that in practice before you say, okay, well, I'm good for seeing this in a game?
2. we'll work those things in walkthroughs. I think just the live action, you want to see it. You see it, 2 times and then feel good about it. There's things that, we'll install, and it may take all the way to a week. It may take Thanksgiving to finally get it in the perfect spot. But we're always trying to find creative ways, different things that we can do with the offense. And we got smart guys. I think they enjoy it. They like having fun, doing different things, and so we try and utilize everyone.
Is it good to put a lot of different things on tape, personnel groupings, including that one, early in the season, just for future opponents who have thus planned for it?
Yeah, certainly there's value to that from an early season standpoint. We'll continue to go through this process each and every week. If we feel like there's something out there that will give us an opportunity that may be challenging for the defense, we're going to put it out there. We're going to rep it in practice, see how it looks. There's going to be times where, hey, maybe it's not this week. We'll keep working it. We'll find the right spot for it. And so I think our guys approach this thing the right way.
What do you remember most about your discussions with Philadelphia last year?
It was an awesome opportunity to kind of go through the head coach interview process. It was a lot of fun. I grew from it, and it was a really, really good experience.
Did you go up there, or where'd you meet them?
Down in Florida, yeah.
And how long? What was the day like? Was it like a 7 to 7 kind of thing, or?
I think it was a pretty full day, pretty much the whole afternoon and evening. So it was a really good process. Good guys that I was able to talk a lot of football, go through stuff from your vantage point. You're going to learn from it. There's going to be things you're going to grow. You're going to say maybe I need to approach that a little bit different, and there's going to be things you feel pretty confident about. And so it's awesome.
Did they pick your brain?
What's that?
Did they pick your brain maybe to get some insight on your game plan?
Yeah, I mean, I know how he's digging on some personnel. I get it. No, those guys are good guys, and it was a good process.
Mike said this afternoon he thinks you're ready to be a head coach. You'd be an excellent head coaching candidate. Tony was talking about on the broadcast yesterday too. Do you feel like you're ready, and how immediate of a goal do you think that is?
More of an off-season thing. I mean, once we get into the season, I mean, I don't really care about it. So, kind of focus on trying to figure out Philly, and off season, when those opportunities present themselves, if they do, awesome. Love that opportunity one day, but we'll see where that takes us.
How much has it done for you, do you feel, that you came in with Jason and now Mike, and they have different sort of coaching styles as far as what they want offensively? How has that helped you develop, and do you incorporate a little of each in what you want to do going forward for what you eventually want?
Every stop along the way, every person you meet, you're going to take something from them. I had Jim Schwartz and Jim Caldwell in Detroit as a player. Took plenty from those guys. They were very different coaches, very different approaches. Jason here, Mike here, Chris Peterson in college, so on and so forth. You take a little piece from everyone that you get to interact with, and you're constantly kind of evolving and, adjusting things. Maybe I view this a little bit different. Okay, I got this opportunity to listen to Dan. He's been a head coach for a long time in Atlanta. Okay, now I hear this little piece from him. Maybe I need to rethink this approach. And so I think it's the fun process of this thing. You're always growing. You're always trying to learn from these different people, and it's been fun.
You mentioned earlier the players are enjoying some of the wrinkles like the CD run. How much are you enjoying it? Is it kind of taking you back to your college days a little bit to be able to do all this different stuff?
Yeah, I think it's fun, and I think the more comfortable we get with it, it's just plays. I don't think it's this big. When we call CD to run the football, I don't think everyone gets all giggly on the sideline like, oh my gosh, we're running that play. Like, that's just part of our offense. That's what we do, and that's part of how we approach this thing. We're not just going to, play smash mouth every single play and run play action. We're going to be willing to open it up and go for it and have some fun.
What, if anything, stood out in the first quarter of that game? Just the way that the offense was clicking. It was 13 first downs.
Yeah.
It's pretty historically irregular.
Yeah, the tempo really, it starts with the O-line, how those guys work. Hey, they get tired, but the defense is getting just as tired, if not more. They don't know when the ball's being snapped, so you know when you can control your breathing. Those guys pushed the tempo the entire time, and that was huge for us, that those guys pushed it, and then everyone else kind of follows. And when you run the ball and you get 5 yards, 6 yards, 7 yards, you're able to chip away at this thing. You're able to sneak in some passes in there. We're able to take advantage of a bunch of reps in there, and that was really big for us. But it starts with those big guys. It's always has, always will.
Are you, as a play caller, mindful of where our defense is down at starting defensive ends, going up against a really high-octane offense, and when we control a game like that to start, is that all in the back of your mind going into a game or during?
There's always discussions. We're always talking about this thing from a team perspective. Certainly, Mike, Dan, myself, Bones. how this game needs to be played. And so we're always going to approach it that way. And within games, there's going to be ebbs and flows. There's going to be times where our defense is on the field for a long time. It's probably not the time to try and run 3 plays as fast as humanly possible and, put ourselves into a compromised situation. So you just always kind of finding those spots. But again, we always want to push the tempo as much as we can whenever we feel like it's our advantage.
At the end of the half, did you think Zeke got a chance to get in there?
We were close, yeah. That was awesome. We were really, really close. Awesome job by everyone else because we kind of have worked on those type of situations and some scenarios, and CD did a really good job. They kind of played the defense that was, I thought, a smart defense. They did a good job against us. CD was able to find a way to get the ball and then ultimately kind of get going where he had his opportunities to pitch the ball to our receivers that were over on the right side. And so I felt like it was a good play, gave us the chance.
I think CD and Zeke were saying they had to improvise a little bit at the beginning of the call or at the
Yes.
end of the play.
Yeah. They played a defense that maybe we hadn't seen prior to, and so I thought it was a good adjustment by them, and obviously we'll make adjustments as we go, but it was good. It was a good job by everyone else not panicking. It's kind of it's one of those plays that may never show up. We may only get one more the rest of the year in that scenario, but it's a situation that you want to be prepared for and handle accordingly.
How was he working on option pitch? It looked like Jamel Hollow got there because it was like a perfect pitch that Zeke could play.
Yeah, it was good, and especially that's a unique situation because one of our points is you don't tuck the football. You got to be able to pitch the ball. This isn't this is the one time everyone will tell you do not tuck the football, and ball security is not the number one thing. So it was fun. I think those guys enjoyed it.
How much are you in Dak's ear in those 2-minute situations, or is it just call the play and get out and let him see everything?
Yeah, I want to try and be as short and concise as possible with them. Obviously, if we need to gather additional information, I'll throw it into them. But I've have the headset on. You don't need someone talking to you constantly, and while you're trying to play the game in a 2-minute drill in the NFL, you need the play. Need any other pertinent information. After that, I need to stop talking to them.
And at what point did you say, okay, we're going to let it go and just call a timeout here? In that last 30 seconds.
Yeah, I think once we got down above or below about 17 seconds, 15 seconds, I think at that point, okay, we're just gonna make sure this is our last play, and let's bang the timeout and put ourselves in a situation to have the last play of the game right there.
Zach Martin, what did you, upon reviewing his game, see there? And secondly, the upcoming matchup with Fletcher Cox, is that something you look forward to twice a year? Ever see this?
Yeah, this game, phenomenal game by Zach. Awesome to have him back. His presence, everyone feels his command. He did a really, really awesome job. And him and Terrence on that right side, they did a great job. They settled that whole thing down over there, took care of business all game. And as far as this game, obviously Zach has played Fletcher a number of times. It's one of the best matchups in this division, him and Fletcher. They're two of the best in the NFL, and it'll be a lot of fun to watch.
What does it say about the maturity of this offense where, like you're saying, 13 first downs, first quarter, 2 touchdowns? You don't have any touchdowns the rest of the game, but they responded in key moments in those 2 field goal drives in the second half.
Yeah.
Only 3 drives in the second half.
Yeah, and that's part of every game kind of has its own life, I think. There's ebbs and flows to every game. There's going to be times like the first quarter where we get a whole bunch of plays and it's awesome and we're in the momentum and in the flow of the thing. And at times the other team's going to have success too, and they're going to move the ball and we're not going to have the ball as much. And I think it's credit to our guys that they kind of stayed ready through that whole process, that when they did get a chance to hop out there after, we make a big interception in the red zone on defense and we're able to come out. Tony's able to hit that run the last play of the third quarter. I mean, we made an interception and one run. Next thing you know, we flipped the whole entire field, and we got an opportunity to go make something out of it.
A lot of runs come behind Zach Martin. Zeke labeled him to rock up the offensive line. What impact does he have on the run game?
Yeah, obviously his presence. He's arguably one of the best, if not the best, guards in the NFL, and to have a guy like that, to be a guy who you can run behind, he takes care of business, and I think he calms everyone else around him as well. Just his command and presence up there. He's able to help Terrence, help Tyler, help everyone else who's out there.
Dak threw less than half the number of times yesterday than he did week 1. When you think about his production and what he was contributing in the 2 weeks, how do you go beyond the box score and say, okay, we're asking something different from him, here's how he's doing relative to our game plan?
Yeah, every game has its own flavor, and obviously we asked them to throw it a lot in the first game, and that was for a particular reason. This game was about completions. We felt like that all along. It was going to be about running the football and completing passes against those guys, and this week will have its own flavor, and so Dash just got to do a great job of approaching it different each and every week. He does a great job of that. Clean slate. Once we hit Wednesday, we come in here and it's first and second down day. We introduce some third downs, and we kind of use that neutral mindset. We got to throw out all the positive, all the negative, and we just got to go back to neutral and reset this thing and look on to Philly.
On his interception, what was the coaching point there?
I think it's just being a little bit aggressive. Obviously, he'd been rolling that first drive of the game, and hey, we're all going to have moments like that, and missed it. Happens. Move on.
You mentioned how the Chargers were kind of taking away the deep passing game.
Yeah.
What's the balance of, as an offense, you obviously want to take what the defense gives you, but is there some level at the same time you don't want to let the defense dictate where you attack them?
Yeah. Aggressively take what they give us, and we're still going to call shots. We're still going to call throws that give us opportunities to go downfield, because if they give it to us, let's take it. But at the same time, continue to take what they give us and take those completions. And there's going to be a few opportunities we're going to take shots, and we're going to still do that even in teams that play too high shell. But we just continue to take those opportunities, and when they're not there, find Zeke, find Tony in the flats and whatnot, and check downs, and we'll keep moving along.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, guys.
All right, good to see everybody. I'll get started. Just, I think you know a little bit by now, I like boxing. I showed another analogy to the defense today. This one was from 1979 of Leonard Benitez. And after the fight, he goes, I never, swung and missed so many times, but I knew I was going to keep fighting all the way through to the end. And he goes, it hurts, but that's what it takes to go win. And I thought I wanted the players to see that, to know early on there were some swings and some misses of some things. And so we changed midstream on some calls and some things. That's what, our league's about, and making changes and adjustments. I was super pumped for the guys on their finish and their attitude of what that stood for. But more than anything, man, I was proud of the guys, a couple guys in some new spots as we're going through defensive end, at safety, and at other spaces. So I thought that showed a lot about who we are, how tight and connected they are. And so it's not the easiest thing to do, so that's why I wanted to make sure give the players the recognition, the credit of moving around and even making some changes during the game. And they did that, and I was super pumped to see those guys battle and the way they did. If it was ready to go past 4 quarters, we were ready to do that too. So it was one of those kind of days where you just had a sense it was going to be tough and battle, and it certainly was. So
Will you walk us through where this happens occasionally? You lose Lawrence. Obviously, you'd put together your plan as a staff, presented it, had a practice, and then you're going from that point on.
Sure.
How much you tear up, how much time you spend redoing it, what your approach is.
Yeah, I would say definitely not tearing it up, but what I did think is I went right, directly to Mike post practice. Here's my thoughts. I'd heard, with Randy's injury that he'd be out. With DeMarcus's injury that he'd be out. And I said, here's what I'm thinking in order to do that, because we already had, Randy out. And so he said, yeah, I think that's a good call. And so that's kind of when I put the plan into motion to change positions with Micah for the week. And he did that on Thursday and Friday and Saturday as a defensive lineman. And Donovan, we didn't know, what his status was. And so then, him going out, there's a lot of moving parts as the game plan went along. I thought the players really did a good job of maneuvering through that and making sure, whatever way it was going to go, Ukuamu was ready for reps. Hooker certainly took some. Kurz took some. KZ was limited for a day. And we just wanted to make sure we had enough coverage that we could go around, and certainly the matchups were difficult against their offense.
What does that say about Mike? Certainly he could rush. You knew he was an edge. He had the rush ability, but playing full-time defense end first time in high school,
right?
And to do it midweek.
Yeah, I'd say I'm hard on him, and because I have a lot of belief and trust in him. I would not have asked him to do that if I didn't think he was ready to do it. And this is the best thing for us to go win this game. And so he said, okay, I'm down, I'm into it. And so that's, to me, I wouldn't have even considered it had I not thought he could handle it. I've seen him what he done on the edge, and so doing it all the time is different than just doing it on third downs or in some 2 minutes. So there's a lot of other factors that go into it because, quite honestly, he's never done some of the pressures and anything as a defensive end. That he knows him at linebacker, but he didn't know him in that space. But he's a quick study, and like I said, I got high standards for him to make sure he hits the mark, and he certainly did. I anticipated some errors, and there's actually less than what I thought heading in.
How much of he's rushing using his hands? How much is that he's learning from Let and Lawrence, maybe even yourself, and AD about just using your hands to get to the quarterback?
Yeah, I think that's already been part of his process. So it wasn't like he hasn't been working on the end of the line. You guys saw during training camp where we were working together and into the season. So he comes down to get pass rush work on a regular basis. But Tank has definitely been somebody that's had a good effect on him. I know he spent time with DeMarcus. That certainly helped, and we're with him on a regular basis. But like I said, I was proud of him. Like I said, I'm tough on him. I got high standards for him because of where I think he can get to, and so we'll continue to push him. And he's still developing as a linebacker too. So you don't want to give him so many things that like let's settle down and focus on things that he does really well.
Man, so well, 3 days work at the end and have such an impact. You find yourself maybe we should keep him there. I mean, I don't know which position has the most impact for your team, but as a rusher, he was special as you saw.
Yeah, I thought he did a good job, and that'll continue to be part of what he does. But there's also some really good linebacker things that he does, and so we're going to make sure we don't overload him, but get him the right amount that he needs. And I think that's an important piece to that. If I ever feel like I'm pushing him over the edge of volume or anything, that we back off. But he was definitely chomping at the bit for more in the game, which is a good thing. That's what you want from guys.
Was there something that you learned about him in the pre-draft process that he could handle a whole bunch of things? When did you kind of get into
Not yet to go through it, I think, here. And so, okay, I tried him when we got here together in OTAs and did some things. Let's see what this looks like. Let's see what that looks like. So I would say it was more of a byproduct of all the time that we had spent together. So that's why I really had very little hesitation to say, hey, this is, I know, a job that you can get done this week, and this is the best way for us to go win. And he was down for it.
One of the advantages is if he's the type of player that the quarterback has to wonder, is he lining up here, is he lining up here? I mean, will that give your team an advantage if he's all over the place?
Yeah, it definitely is, especially if you're standing up too. If you're over on this side, on the end of the line, or over on this side on the end of the line, that's one thing. But if you add other elements to that, I think that only adds to it.
Michael wants to play more. He's wanted to play more since he got here. Should he play more? Is he ready to play more? His snap count, do you think he's ready to see that increase?
Yeah, I like where he's at, and I think we kind of hit the mark of where I hoped he would go, as a defensive lineman in the game. I think he was in the low 40s, but definitely a lot different when you're battling, 320-pounders as opposed to out, guarding running backs and tight ends. So that factors in as well.
What did you think of DeMonte KZ? Just mainly the interception. I mean, see the forced fumble a week ago, but then that key interception. You've been around him a lot. Certain players like him just have kind of a knack for those type of plays?
I would say that's true, and I think that goes in the evaluation process on somebody, whether they're coming up in college or they're in the NFL and you're looking at them as a free agent. And I think that's one of the things with the secondary. There's really some guys with very good ball skills, and Trey is certainly that way. So when the team scouted him, look no further than his receiver background, but he's got fantastic hands. And Case has always been somebody that's had a real ball hawking mindset and a fearlessness and a boldness about him. So I love that about his style of play.
There are different ways you could prioritize and rank skills. You talked about how ball skills was a premium. When you come to a new team like Dallas, is that something you're like, okay, well, Trey has that, so let's get someone to pair with him, because then that can be all in on our strength? Or how do you go about working through that?
I think it's just you want it from this point forward as often as you can, and there's certainly a lot of guys here who already had good ball skills. I think Donovan does, so as you're going, Anthony does, and so as you're going through that, you want to make sure that you're continuing on to that. And so that was what was nice. We added some guys in free agency and in the draft, and of the people that we did add onto that, I would say their ball skills were good or better, in the evaluation.
Did you hit somebody? Is he almost at that point where you say?
Can you hear the first? Okay, yep, gotcha.
At that point where you say, this is the opponent's number one receiver, he's on him, or he's not there yet?
He certainly is ready for that challenge, and we have done that some already this season. to put him into that spot, and he really has responded. So it won't be every game that we'll do that, but there'll certainly be ones that we will. And he's definitely, you feel his intent, you feel his length and strength at the line of scrimmage. And then I hit on the ball skills earlier, but I've been impressed by him by the first 2 weeks for sure.
The interception he has, that just him, the film study, finding that route and just picking that off.
Yep. And so onto those ones, you got to have good recall to know, hey, this is a route that could come up. This is when I can take a chance. This is when I can't. And you really have to do that out at the practice field to make sure that's a spot I can go to, that's not. And so there's been times where he's undercut too much and the ball got thrown. Okay, what'd you learn? How do we play from that? And he plays against some pretty good guys on a regular, so he's got plenty of good training. But I'm very encouraged about his progress. I really am.
Jalen and Leighton, what did you see from them on film? Obviously, they both led the team in tackles, taking a larger role with Mike at end.
Well, I think number one, we knew that this back, could really break tackles. And that's, something that we've seen, from his past. He had, I think it was 2019, he might have had 90 catches, where he was a factor. I knew he was going to be a factor in the passing game, and he was in ours. Where he took some shots down the field. I think there was one on Leighton, and we got a foul on it. Another one down to Kiki, where he defended him, but there was a foul on the other side. And then after that, they were mostly underneath throws. But that said, we knew that was going to be something to match. But we knew we had to play strong in the run game, and those two guys certainly have the size and strength to do that. And I was pleased with both Leighton and Jalen in there.
That's where Anthony Brown is right now.
I really thought he tackled. There's one that he didn't, on the touchdown that they scored, but I thought he was really secure in his tackling. And I thought it's been a strength that he's a really competitive guy. And so down the red zone, he really stood up. And that's what I thought. Here's a matchup on a taller receiver to go against Williams. And they took their shots at him. And I thought, man, I was really impressed by him, standing up. And I thought for him, that was a good game, that he really had to fight and battle and scrap all the way through. And that was one of the things, because of the size of these receivers, that you're going to have to go all the way to the ground through the catch. That's the kind of competition we're going to have. So a couple things. We knew the quarterback would rip it. We turned up the speed on the jugs machine to say this guy can really rip, and then competing all the way through to the ground. And Brandon Smith was one in practice that I thought we really challenged, and he did a good job of working through the receivers, and the guys were battling for him because we knew they were going to make some contested throws into tight windows, and those were the ones we'd have to fight and battle and defend for.
Leighton drew 3 holding calls in the game. Does that get marked in the grade reports?
Absolutely, yes. Yeah, certainly on the one I can remember vividly on the blitz where the center kind of came back and grabbed just because there was 2 guys into that spot. But yeah, absolutely, we call that a forced penalty. And it's a big green plus.
Mike said Kurse got a game ball after the game. What's his impact been for you guys?
Well, I think number one, he's a really authentic leader. And for those of you who've been around JK so far, there's an honesty about him, from teammate to teammate. And so that's always stood out from the spring to where, he is today. But then him stepping in and, playing really the entire game, at both safety spots. We call it a big nickel, where sometimes he's down. You see him by the end of the line of scrimmage. You see him sometimes in a 3-safety defense. One of those players is generally the nickel. They just take on that responsibility of that position, and JK and Hook have been 2 guys that we've done that with. And so it's a little bit of dual learning for them, but from some of the matchups, it's a good one for us. And so he's really responded to that. He's always had the history of, being able to guard tight ends, but I think you saw the physicality and the blitzing and the tackling, and I thought, man, that was a really impactful part of our game, and I thought he was that way.
Did y'all know he was that good? I mean, obviously in Minnesota and Detroit, I don't know if he played as much as he's playing now. More of a special team guy.
Yeah, he had played some, and in Minnesota, like I was referring to earlier, they had some packages where he would, guard a big receiver and a tight end, and he's always kind of had that reputation and been known to do that. And so to see that role expand, and we've got great trust and belief in him.
Big nickel, you use a lot of that in Atlanta or Seattle, a little bit of both?
More so in Atlanta, where we would match up onto some teams that were, using someone as a featured tight end that could split out. Like so often there's on most teams there's a tight end. It's like this guy he's a receiver and he's excellent at it. And so sometimes you want to match up somebody who's got a different skill set on the tight end. So that's why I think when you talk to Mike and to Steven and Jerry, and that's why the versatility on the whole roster is a big deal. Why do we like safeties who've got length and speed? Sometimes it's just to do that role really good. And if we can get guys, this guy's really good for short yards. This guy can guard big, long tight ends. This guy is fast enough to play out on the edge. This guy's a square nose tackle. And finding roles for about 18 or 19 or 20 guys, that's, to me, when you're going to be at your best, because not every offense is built in exactly the same way. And so some guys want to feature different packages, and so you have to have enough depth and versatility to do that. And fortunately for us, we do have that kind of versatility, especially on the back end. We got some tall, long safeties. We got some guys that like to play in the middle of the field, like Kays, and so having the ability to move guys around into different spaces, that helps.
You go from Brady to Herbert to now Hurts. What's the different challenge that this guy has than what you had the first 2 weeks?
Can you hit the first two, please?
Brady to Herbert to now Jalen Hurts.
Oh, gotcha. Thank you.
What's the different challenge with him than the first couple games?
Well, I would say, we saw a little bit of the, mobility, in some of the, design quarterback runs this past week, with Herbert. You saw that down the red zone, and he got outside the pocket to scramble for some. So I'd say those come alive, but this comes, even to a larger sense in terms of how they'll feature him in the run game. So I'd say a lot different, between the three players, but as we're going through the week, that's one of the things that we'll certainly have to prepare for, the legs of Jalen and the design quarterback runs. And Herbert had some of them, but not to the extent that Philly does, and certainly nowhere near the extent that Tampa had.
With the emphasis on rushing lanes that goes into Hurts, does Micah, if he's to stay at end, does his meeting schedule change? Is he spending more time in the D-line room than he would be linebacker room? How do you...
Yeah, we haven't gone down the road far enough yet to figure out where and what, but that would be the case if he was, just like we did this week, if he was more at one spot than another. Sometimes we even do it by day. If we're working more of a third down part of things, he'd be more with them. But we haven't discussed what parameters we're going to put on that this week just yet.
How was he with his rush lane? How was he with his rush lane stuff in the game yesterday? Was there one where he dipped inside and Herbert was able to get outside? Does he need to be more concerned with contain in that situation, or is that okay?
Sometimes that's the case. Other times we're trying to draw someone inside, so the other side would go high. So we call that like a high-low. So if I was the left end, I might come up and under for the right end to go and see if he can create the chase. So other times you just got to take your shot when somebody oversets you to go inside. So no, there was no issues from a contained standpoint on his responsibility. If there was one that he came under, there's usually someone coming to cover. And so whether that was a defensive tackle or a defensive end, but no bust on his end on that part.
You said you're pretty hard on him. How do you balance that feedback with, he's kind of stepping into a pretty unique situation? What do you do?
Yeah, I think he reminds me of a guy way early on in my career that I spent a lot of time with, Michael Bennett. And so, for him, he was a defensive end in college, and I came to say, hey, man, we're going to, put you down at defensive tackle. And he's thinking, what in the hell are you talking about? But he played a lot of really good winning football, playing as a nickel 3 technique in Seattle. And but he's somebody that just kept growing and growing and growing based on here was a new skill set that he could do. So with Micah, I'm challenging him to find the things that he does really well and make sure that I don't overload him, but I can find the exact things that I want him to get done. And so he's still developing, and that's kind of the fun part of this, to say here's a guy who, played limited time at Penn State for 2 years out last year, and now he's, heading into his third game. We got a lot of work to do to keep developing, but I've got great belief in him, and just, I can't wait to see where we're going to take him to. But I've got a high standard for him.
Is that a balancing act of what he does best and let him do what he does best, or does he does everything so well that
No. There's a lot to develop here. He's not, he's got a long way to go to develop.
I know sometimes you be master, jack of all trades, master none. Is there one? Does he master? He has the ability to master everything.
He can run and hit like that's his superpower, and he's got rare speed and physicality to do that. And so I want to make sure that we're always featuring that part of his game.
You talked about how going forward, which position he'll spend a certain amount of time with will depend on the game plan. For a day like today, when obviously his film's more defensive line, but you want to make sure that what the linebackers did, he's super aware for if he goes back to linebacker moving forward. How do you decide where he goes and where did he go?
To the defensive line for the film part, and then with Coach Edwards as another review after that about the linebackers.
And what have you learned about his energy when he's on the field and how he rallies teammates, whether he's communicating the defense with the headset on or coming off the field?
Well, I think people lead in different ways, and so for him, his leadership comes from like just relentlessly going. He's not somebody that's going to be the vocal piece to bring everybody around and go, but his energy, his speed that he plays with, the physicality, that's leading in your own way by putting that on the tape. As far as the helmet goes, and I'm glad that you brought that up, it's really not the way I view it as this big thing. It's more like you're starting the information. So if you had the green dot for us, you would start the information. Then I expect about another 8 or 9 guys to start talking. Here's the information. So it's different from a quarterback, where you're making all the stuff and all the checks and all the things. When you get it to the defense, it's passing all the information to 10 other guys, and I expect them to talk. So it's more like you have to start the communication, and then from there, the whole defense should be taking over. So I didn't want to be confused and you guys be unaware of how I view that.
You get creative in your meetings. Do you ever have them like play a game of telephone to make sure that when it's going from next
Yeah,
to next?
it's basically pass the message, yep. And so the best of the best can do that. And it's pre-snap and it's post-snap. But the call, to me, I could, in the old days, we just signal. So it's not that different than that, except we don't have to signal. So what happened when we signaled? Everybody started talking. Well, this is the same space of passing the message, and now everybody, the communication then goes to 10 other players.
Your philosophy of communication and its importance, is that something that transcends your time in a football building, like in your personal life? Like, is communication something that carries
Yeah, I would
over?
say that. Yep. I haven't been in too many arguments with my wife. Said, man, we are really over communicating right now. So I would say it's super important in any walk of life. Everybody who's laughing right now is certainly thinking in their own space. Yeah, that's definitely not the case. So yeah, it's super important on the communication side, and being comfortable with the uncomfortable conversations too. Like, usually it's not as bad as we make it out in our own head. Like, hey man, this is what's going on, this is what we need to do, and this is how we're going to get it done. I think most ball players would like direct communication, because quite often they've been bullshitted a lot in their life through recruiting, through college, and in the NFL, and this coach, yeah, you're doing good, and then behind, why am I not playing? So like direct, clear, concise communication is good, and I don't care what sport you're playing in. If you're going to play good defense, you better be talking.
How long have y'all been married, one guys?
We have been married 25 years, so we've had lots of good communication.
So no fights.
Lots of good communication. All right, you guys have a good one.
Digital boards in these stadiums, that's not the official game.
Hey, everybody. All right. What's up, Rich? Doing good.
Can you start, we were asking you about Greg last week, and you know his history better than anyone, but to be able to come back as quickly as he did from the game that he had, what it says about him and what that does for a player or kicker going forward.
Yeah, I mean, he's been through it before where he's, had a bad game, and he's always responded. And it's kind of having like a cornerback mentality is, you get beat on a play and you got to have a real fast memory, I guess you could say, and move on to the next play. But I've been with Greg now for 10 seasons, so I've been through a lot of highs and a couple lows, and he's always responded out of a bad game or a missed kick. And so isn't it poetic justice and how that football thing turns where the very next game he gets a shot at a big game winner and nails it. And we're on the sideline and we could have been more confident. I was on the headset and it just said, this game's over. This game's over.
What was the process on trying to block the punt? Obviously, it was a penalty there. What was...
Yep. The thought process was, I think Cowboys fans aren't the play it safe type, so I was going to give them what they wanted, come after their ass on punt rush. So I hope they're happy with it, because we came after them. It's kind of the mindset going into the game that we're going to come after this football, and you can sure debate everything, but I'm still not so sure that we actually roughed them.
At the Did they call it on Kamara, or I feel like there was some blocking there too?
Yeah, I didn't get who they actually a jersey number because it was a train wreck right there at the block spot. But what I got on film is that their number 40 hooked Kamara and pulled them back into the punter. And, you know, you can make a great case it was holding, or that the punter hit his own blocker. But there was a lot of bodies at that pile, and so our goal was to come after him.
I mean, there's a risk there. You know, if you know, obviously, at that situation, though, you have a chance to get the ball back.
Yep.
That the risk reward there. I mean, certainly you can debate whether it was a penalty or not, but that's the risk you're taking. That you could get that penalty, them rushing the punt like that.
Yeah, I mean, anytime you rush the punt, there's a risk, you know. But last week, Pittsburgh was up by 3 points in the fourth quarter, and they rushed the punt. They blocked it, ran in for a touchdown. So the reward is high, the risk is high. But
I guess it's like you had the lead, you had a chance to get the ball back. The offense had a chance to score too. So
yeah,
it wasn't the same as the Pittsburgh situation. Right?
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, going into the game, you got a game plan, and you never anticipate that. I don't want to pull the trigger because I'm worried about, you know, roughing the punter. I think anytime you rush, you know, you're coming after the football. And like I said, I could go to the tape and we could sit down and watch and, you know, tell me if it's roughing. You know, I'm biased, but I think the TV copy shows a pretty good picture of maybe something else.
Is that something you send into the league to have them look at?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'll be interested to see what they say. But like I said, there's a lot of bodies there, and our goal is to come after it, and you could absolutely second guess it, and I'm okay with that. But part of our game plan was to come after them, you know, with a real aggressive mindset, give the Cowboys fans something what they're looking for.
A decision like that, how does it go down on the sideline with you and Mike?
To rush that punt?
Yeah.
That was my decision.
So you just go up and tell them?
No, I just made the play call on 3rd to 4th down. That's what we were going to do. I think right before that we got a sack, knocked him back a little bit out of range. We had a different call once we got the sack, and then moved him back a little bit further. We changed the call, and so we thought we'd come after it.
After the fact, how many times have you had the head coach come tell you what the hell was that?
On the roughing the punter?
On any of them? That one or?
Oh, a lot. I also had a head coach jump on my neck and punch me in the gut and say, "Hell of a job," when we blocked it. So I think the only way to block a punt is to rush the punt. And there's been a few times you rough them.
Do you sense that Mike is comfortable with the gambling part of that, if you want to call it that?
That's a good question. I think I would say yes with an asterisk.
Was he happy yesterday?
On the game?
On that halftime, was he happy about that whole decision, how they played out yesterday?
I think he was. I think he was okay with us following the game plan and coming after him. He's probably upset that we roughed him, or that they called roughing.
You expressed confidence in Greg last week, confidence this week, but in that end of game situation where the clock's running down, what's your ideal range of where you get Greg? Or is it kind of like you're 85% confident past 50 to 95%?
Yeah.
How would you?
That's a good one. As we started that drive and the ball started to go, I think we, wherever we got to, we were probably at 30 or 40 yard line range, and Coach Nuss came up to me, and we always kind of have a predetermined line, but just on how Greg was hitting it, Nuss asked me, I said, just cross the 50. You know, if it was at the 50, it'd be a 68-yarder, and I think we probably could have kicked that if we needed to, but the goal was to get to the 45 at least. But I think if we crossed the 50, we would have been in range for a walk-off kick. You probably don't kick that if there's, 18 seconds left. But if there's 4 seconds left, I think his range was unlimited. And the reason why we chose to kick off the second half, going the other direction, is there's actually a little bit of a breeze going the way we kicked that last game-winning field goal. So we actually chose, to have the little bit of wind in the fourth at our back going that way, and that paid off.
Does this pregame warm-up dictate where you want to be? Because he missed 2 from 54 going in that direction before the game.
In pregame? Yeah, pregame doesn't dictate our distance at all.
Where does that part of the scouting report on the wind pattern, how is that formed? What informs that? How do you guys pick up on that sort of thing?
For ourselves, you're saying?
Yeah, know that the wind in that direction is what you want to play with?
I think it's just a kicker's comfort level. So at the end of the first half, we seriously debated giving him a crack at a 69-yarder going towards our tunnel, if you remember that. That was when we put the offense back on the field and almost scored the touchdown. But the wind was a little bit in our face where, if we got 5 more yards, we're trying to draw them off sides. If we got 5 more yards, we would have kicked that. But at 69, we felt they might have put a returner back there. We don't want to have our offensive line covering it. That's why when we came out on the field in the second half, we said, let's flip it. So in the fourth quarter, if we need a big kick, we're kicking where we want, which is the way we picked it.
McQuaid went and got the ball out of the net or had the guy hand it to him afterwards. Did you see him do that? Is that something that he normally does, or does his relationship with Greg say, okay, I know this is a special moment for the guy, let me go get it?
I think the latter. I think he knew that it was a special moment. So right when we kicked it, he protected, he made sure it was good, and he took off and he got the game ball. So the ball that Coach McCarthy presented to Greg in the locker room was the ball that he actually kicked. And then Greg put that ball in his bag. So that'll be one for the memory bank for him.
Greg's a pro, he's had bad games before and all that, but just what do you think that exact moment, I mean, we kind of talked about it a little bit earlier, but did this feel different at all for him?
I don't think so. I think, if he had a great week last week, it probably would have felt the same. There might have been a little bit of monkey off the back, but I got to be careful talking about Greg's bad games because he really hasn't had many of them. I could probably pick 4 in now 10 years that it's like, that probably wasn't his best game. So we're talking about a small sample size of bad games. But for him to make any walk-off kick, but yeah, especially coming off maybe the previous week, a little bit of pressure on him, it's pretty awesome. So he'll have that one along with a couple other walk-off kicks, hopefully for his kids someday. Pretty awesome.
You told us that story of Janikowski last week. When you're coming off a week like last week, and there aren't very many bad games, as you just said, how do you balance, do I need to talk to Greg a little bit or just kind of leave him alone, or how do you sort of figure out the best way to go there?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think I probably have treated every week maybe a little differently. This past week, I really didn't have to talk. I didn't say, hey, Greg, keep your head up, man. You're going to be okay. You're a good kicker. I didn't go that route with Greg. We had a plan to get some extra kicking in on Wednesday. We got a few extra kicks on Thursday. So I wish I had a better story for you, but it was kind of business as usual. I didn't want to amplify it like, it's such a bad week and everybody's crashing down on you and we don't read or listen to certain things. So he wasn't attuned probably to all that. But we kind of treated it a little bit as business as usual. I told them the story of Janikowski and, really good kicker, sometimes missed kicks. But the best kickers always bounce back from missed kicks. And that's why Greg's in the league now 10 years, probably with a whole bunch of years left, is that he has the ability to bounce back from a missed kick and make a really big kick. What an awesome ending. I mean, how fitting can it be to, kind of be the GOAT the previous week and then make a big kick for his team yesterday.
Is there value in having a kicker on the practice squad long term, or is that something that, as Greg shows, that he's recaptured the rhythm and, it's just smooth sailing from here on out? Like, if you just say, okay, we don't need this anymore.
Yeah, I think there's value in it for the fact that we used Laram last week to have our kickoff return team field some live kickoffs, or sometimes we don't have Greg hit kickoffs for the scout kickoff team just to, he doesn't need to hit that many balls. So there's value in Laram, hitting scout kickoffs, even some punts for the scout punt team. So unless we need legs on practice squad, then yeah, kicker can come and go. But if we got a spot, because now there's 16 of them, yeah, there's always value in keeping an extra leg.
Mike, we've seen him at end, we've seen him at linebacker, he played at center for a snap. It looked like in training camp, he had him return a little bit, he was catching some. I think he punted in high school. Has he been in your ear at all about doing more on special teams?
He thinks he can do everything. I mean, he literally wants to return kickoffs. And he wants to be the backup punter. Probably wants to play quarterback. But yeah, he just a really fun kid, and I wouldn't put anything past him. If we got him back to return a kickoff, he'd probably do a pretty damn good job.
John, when the injuries start hitting last week with guys like Michael Gallup, DeMarcus, Randy's out, and some of your guys like Tony Pollard and Dorrance Armstrong are going to get more opportunities on offense and defense. What was your process like reestablishing which personnel you'll be using, and to what degree are you told you're not using these guys anymore, you're only using them 10% as much?
Yeah, that's a really good one. So our first game against Tampa, we had a really different lineup last week just because of all the personnel changes. We changed spots for Jeremy Sprinkle on punt team, Leighton Vander Esch inserted on punt team. Azur Kamara ended up playing all phases. Luke Gifford, we got active. So there was a ton of shuffling from week 1 to week 2. And I think that'll probably continue to happen until we kind of find how it all fits. And that's probably pretty normal the first couple weeks of the season, is the shuffling of the roster, and especially with the injuries, then that adds a lot to it. So I think part of my job is to be a good roster shuffler and find homes for everybody as the football turns. And one of the biggest attributes of a special teams player is versatility, because you might be right guard this week, left guard this week, right tackle, left end. I mean, it's all over the place. So we try to keep it pretty simple and find a home for everybody because it changes a lot.
Thank you.
Thanks, John.
All right. Thanks, you guys.